Guys, before I get to the video right quick, I just want to say rest in peace to everybody that was killed in the earthquake in Turkey by Syria. I think the death toll is up to 12,000 now, last I saw. Yeah, my condolences to all of them, man. I was seeing some of the images of them pulling the kids out of the rubble. I don't wish that on nobody, man. You know, us Greeks, we, haven't always gotten along with the Turks, man, but I definitely don't wish that on them, man. And RIP to everybody that was killed, man, especially the young kids that I saw over there on the images. We're just seeing the images on TV, but it does not look good whatsoever, and the death toll is still going up, so prayers up for everybody over there. Anyways, getting onto this video, though. So guys, in this video, I'm going to talk about a guy that a lot of you guys probably haven't heard of. This is one of the top guys in the Vicelord nation. And he's from the particular branch of the Vicelords known as the unknown Vicelords, or the UVLs. And shout out to all the UVLs over on the west side of Chicago, man, because a lot of them were at Marshall. And, I always, try to encourage all these kids to get out of the gang life. But a lot of the students at Marshall were claiming that every time I hear the UVL, that brings back a lot of memories. One thing about them, though, they live in a hot spot of the city, okay, most of the UVLs. And there may be UVL chapters way out south or something. I don't know of any up north, but the majority of them are on the west side. And they live in a hot spot of drug activity, okay, right off that heroin highway. A lot of money over there, man. And a lot of blood, comes with that money. So this is one of the gangs that goes back, way before I was born, to the 50s, 60s. I think it was the late 50s. And the Vicelord Nation really started it was like juvie. I don't know the exact name that they gave the facility, but it was down in St. Charles. It was a correctional facility for boys. And there were some boys there who started, I wouldn't say it was a gang, it was just kind of a band of brothers, if you want to call it that. They came together, and then when they were released, they went back home to Chicago's west side to the Lawndale neighborhood. And there were a lot of gangs in the area at that time. And this was during a time when that neighborhood was changing. My mom is originally from Garfield Park, and she was there. She was one of the last whites in the area. I had posted when I still had my Instagram. This is the one back in 2015, 2016 when I still had the IG. I had posted her class pic, and you could see she was one of the only white girls in the class. That area originally was all European immigrants, but during that time when she was growing up, it was changing to become predominantly black, and on the southwest side, predominantly Hispanic, in the little village area. But yeah, that was a transition period, and so the black gangs that were forming were fighting with the white gangs. Most of the whites were on that gangbanging stuff at this time. And so, it was a lot of the dynamics in the city were a lot different, and a lot of this stuff was racial, so a lot of the white gangs would prey on the black residents, and the black guys, they started their gangs. And the Vicelords initially were one of the smaller groups over there, okay, but eventually the rest of the black gangs that were in that area got absorbed into the Vicelords. And how that happened and why, that turned out to be the dominant gang is a long story, but that's a topic of a whole other video. But most of the other black gangs that were in the area at that time don't exist anymore. I don't even know most of their names, but it was a lot of different names. And the Vicelords got all their members to join with them, okay? And then the different branches of the Vicelords kind of started later. At first, they were started to call themselves the conservative Vicelords during the civil rights movement, because they were trying to change their image and become more of a civil rights organization. They eventually did get a grant of, I think it was a few $100,000 from the Rockefeller Foundation, and they were trying to get on that civil rights stuff, but their origin was a street gang, and they couldn't get away from that. The money started to get diverted, and criminal activity started to go on, and that eventually got exposed, and the whole thing kind of fell apart. Now, there was another attempt, I think this was in the 80s, one of their leaders started to try to turn it into a branch of Islam, but that never materialized either. And most of the Vicelords that I knew in Marshall or, in that area were either Christian, or some of them were Muslim, but mainstream Muslim, not, any particular kind of Muslim. But I think more were Christian than Muslim, probably, that were claiming Vicelord. And some might have been nothing, but I had a lot of friends for a while west, that were Vicelords and Four Corner Hustlers, and I can say The thing that always like intrigued me with it was that a lot of them really they knew the lit and stuff like that, but most of them didn't really follow it. And to me, that was a good thing because, like, for example, the founders of the Vice Lords, they started like their own religion. Saying like Lordism or whatever. I don't know anybody out west that really actually believed in that. It was just kind of like a thing just to rep like the style of the gang or whatever. Yeah, that for me was always kind of like a turn off because they were trying to like make the gang, these kids God. You know what I'm saying? Like the older guys and stuff, they would form this whole ideology and try to make this what these kids worshipped. And some of them did. I would say that for a lot of these kids, like the gang was their God, which was sad. The pastors and the preachers, they would stay on these kids, always telling them, like always addressing the gang members, like, your real father, God loves you, but these gangs, the streets don't have love for nobody. And you can see that in the results, with some of these guys when they get older in their life. Yeah, that was basically, their attempt at transitioning out of the street gang life to something else. But this was a time when they had a lot of structure, and there was a lot of older guys that were in charge, and they still to this day, I would say, have more structure than the folks in general. Okay, than the BDs or the GDs. The Finballs in general still have more structure. And part of that, I can't give an exact reason for that, but it just seemed to me that a lot of the folks gangs started to, break apart in the neighborhoods first. I think it was one of the neighborhoods on the south side that started to, like even when Larry Hoover was still, before he went away to the Supermax, like they went renegade. Like a lot of the folks just didn't, weren't paying street tax anymore and stuff like that. And then once a few neighborhoods started to do it, everybody else started to see what they had going on, and then everybody started getting on that. But the Finballs, even to this day, you have some guys that are something that you could call, shot callers. Now, nowhere near to what it was back in the day, but the highest ranking Vice Lord that I had done a video on, and of this particular branch of the Vice Lords, the unknown Vice Lords, was like in the early days of my channel. I had talked about Willie Lloyd, okay? And Willie Lloyd is deceased now. He had gotten shot, and I think he was paralyzed for a while, and he was doing like speaking engagements and stuff like that, and had kind of left the streets behind. But he just recently passed. This was like a few years ago. But this guy, who I'm going to talk about in this video, there's a guy named Lester Warfield, and he's 60 years old now, and there's one thing about him that shows you just how much the culture in the streets has changed over the years in Chicago. There is no picture of this guy anywhere on the internet, not even a mugshot. He grew up in a time when these were supposed to be like secret societies. You know what I'm saying? Like anybody who did anything to get any attention, that was like a reason for a violation. You know what I'm saying? Contrast that with today, where literally the whole thing is about chasing clout. You get on the internet and post literally everything you're doing. You're claiming the gang in your tag on Instagram and everything. You're dissing the ops, like rapping about everything you're doing, self-snitching like great. I mean, it's just like the total polar opposite. Any gang member now, has the internet is flooded with pictures of them, claiming the gang. You got guys uploading videos of themselves like, actually committing crimes, violating somebody, or robbing a store or something like that. In the day when this guy came up, that was something you would do everything you could to try to cover up. A lot of the illegal activities they were doing were being, covered up by this face of legitimacy that they had as far as the Vice Lords. Their symbols, usually you see the top hat. You can see some of the Islamic symbols they use, and even the cross, like even the Christian cross, you'll see that a lot of times, especially with the travelers. You see too sometimes like a glass, like a drink glass, you know what I'm saying, or like a cane, and then the bunny. That's like a Vice Lord. And the 2-6, sometimes people confuse that because they use the bunny too. I don't know who was using it first, but that's typically the gang that's most affiliated with the bunny. Is the Vice Lords, man. But the colors, the different factions, usually it's either black or red or black and gold. Unknowns, I think, is black and gold. I think Mafia Insanes is black and red. I think Undertakers is black and red too. Don't quote me on that though. But I think most of the Vice Lord factions still they rock black and gold, but they can really rock either. It's like black or red or black and gold. Typically are their colors, man, and they're under the 5-star, the Finball. That was their their nation for a while, but again, that kind of is falling apart now. You see like Vice Lords beefing with even other Vice Lords to this day, which in other cities, anybody from other cities can tell me in the comments if that's going on over there. But even in the heartland of, the Vicelord nation, like on the west side now, today that's going on. Like they're beefing with not just other Finballs, but other, guys like in a different set that have some of their own, guys from their same gang in it. But you see that now all over the city. So this guy is back in the news again because he tried to rob a bank. He had escaped from a halfway house, and he's 60 years old now. But they said, quote, a convicted bank robber and former, quote, supreme leader of the unknown Vicelords street gang is facing new federal charges alleging that he disappeared from a Chicago halfway house last August and attempted to rob another bank on the city's northwest side. So Lester Warfield, 60, was charged in a two-count indictment made public this week with escape and attempted bank robbery. He's been in custody at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, so he's not in the county. He's at the MCC downtown since his arrest in September, and he'll have a detention hearing today. So today was his detention hearing. I don't know how it went. I haven't seen any update in the system yet as far as like what happened, but he had a court-appointed attorney, and that attorney could not be reached for comment. So according to the charges, he escaped on August 30th from the Salvation Army halfway house at 825 North Christiana, where he was being held after serving most of a 12-and-a-half-year prison sentence for robbing a bank in the Portage Park neighborhood in 2012. So 6 days after he disappeared, he tried to rob a Chase Bank branch on Pulaski Road in the city's Avondale neighborhood. And by the way, those neighborhoods, so Portage Park is kind of like a middle-class neighborhood on the northwest side, and typically it's like, considered a sweeter neighborhood. A lot of like Polish, Mexicans. It's like a heavy immigrant community. It's like one of the heaviest Polish areas of the city. But no details of that alleged crime were included in the indictment, though Chicago police arrest records indicated that he was taken into custody a short distance from the bank. So according to a prosecution filing in his previous case, he was a, quote, supreme universal five-star elite king and supreme chief of the unknown Vicelord street gang with a criminal history dating back decades, including convictions for attempted murder, home invasion, armed robbery, residential burglary, aggravated battery, and possession of a weapon by a felon. So his first bank robbery occurred in July of 2005 when he walked into a Bank One in Chicago and told the teller that he was a member of Al-Qaeda and that he was armed with a gun and would quote, blow the bank up if the teller did not give him the money. So he was convicted, and the U.S. District Judge sentenced him to 6.5 years in prison. 8 months after his release in 2011, he was still on federal parole, and he and two others robbed a Chase Bank on Irving Park Road in Chicago. So during the robbery, the defendant approached a young bank teller, passed him a note indicating that he had a gun, and threatened to shoot a nearby customer if the teller did not hurry up with the money, according to prosecutors. So he was arrested later that day with nearly $3,000 in cash stuffed in his pants. The U.S. District Judge sentenced him to 151 months behind bars in that case. Before his release in April of 2022, he was ordered by the court to stay at the Salvation Army or another suitable halfway house for, quote, all or part of his 3-year term of supervised release. And so that's what's going on now. So he was just, recently booked again for that. As far as the exact like spots where you're going to find some of them these days, for specific blocks, I can tell you like 21st and Holman. On the south side, I think they got a neighborhood over by 73rd and Cottage Grove. That one, I'm not sure. That might be some UVL members that are like members of a different set. But then like Augusta and Central Park, they got like some guys over there. Apparently, the Chicago police say that they have some over at Chicago Ave and Central Park. That one, to me, I don't know. I thought that was like a gun line between the C's and the T's of Chicago Ave, between the travelers and the conservatives, man. But apparently, according to CBD, there's like a few UVLs over in that area. And then Chicago Ave and Drake, Chicago Ave, like around Kedzie, out to like Holman, and then by Superior and Waller. So along the Ave, like a lot of sets, and then over by Cicero, all the way, further out west in Erie, 5th and Holman, Huron and Laverne. Now these are all west side, okay? No south side here. Iowa and Latrobe, Iowa and Sawyer, Jackson and Central Park, Jackson and Sacramento. Those are pretty close. Madison over by Carroll, Pulaski, Costner. And then also on Congress, Spalding, Central Park over there, you got UVLs. The set that I was talking about, the Garfield Park video, this was like a few months ago. The UVLs are like heavy in the Garfield Park area. Okay, now there's four corner houses over there too, like on some of those blocks that I was talking about, the ones that are really hot. But UVLs too in that in the area around Marshall, you got like U's. But Monroe and Lockwood, okay, Monroe and Lotus, like, and then a little bit farther north, like towards the Austin community, like North Avenue, all the way to Hirsch and LeClaire to Leamington, like off of the L blocks in Austin. Now these I think are mixed sets, okay, over by Austin. Like a lot of those I think are like a combination of different gangs. And then the only gangs that I think, the only sets that I think are like all UVLs you're going to find like on the further south of that on the west side. But then Ohio and Laverne, Polk and Kedzie, Potomac and Pulaski, Thomas, over to, or really like between Thomas and Augusta off of like Monticello, and then over at Lawndale too. And then like Washington and Costner, Washington and Kilpatrick, and then Madison, like all the way over to Madison on both of those streets too, man. And then apparently there's some new thing called the Unknown Traveling Vicelords, like, which is like, I guess, a combination of U's and T's. Although this one I'm not too familiar with. I haven't met anybody that's like an unknown traveling Vicelord, to be honest with you. Yeah, that one is like something new. I never remember that growing up, but they're over by apparently Adams and Kilpatrick, Flournoy and Cicero, Gladys and Cicero, Ohio and Cicero, Race and Laramie, Van Buren and Cicero, and then Van Buren and Laramie over to like Harrison and Kilpatrick. So you see the area where they're at. You know, it's like predominantly West Side, man. That's like definitely their heartland. And I don't know too many neighborhoods that they have in like other parts of the city. The conservatives got sets in other parts of the city, but the T's and the U's are mainly out west. The most common reason why I see the kids out west getting into this stuff is getting picked on by other kids, or getting attacked in some cases by other kids that are in gangs, and so then they form their own little cliques, and you know, then those cliques become the predator, you know, that used to be what they were trying to get protection from, and now they're the problem. That's the most common reason I see. But once in a while you see guys who come up over there that are just growing up in like really impoverished situations. They might have parents that are on dope and stuff like that, and then they got guys in the neighborhood that are offering them quick money. And that right there is the main, I call it the fish hook, you know what I'm saying? Because once they take that bait, man, getting off is like, it's like impossible. We, in my culture, we have this it's like a fable. We call it the golden goose. Guy has a goose that was laying a golden egg every day, and he was getting rich off the goose because it would lay golden eggs. So he was impatient and wanted to get all the eggs at once. So he cut the goose open to try to get all the eggs at once, and of course then was left with nothing. That to me is like a metaphor for that trap, man, in the dope game on the west side, man, because that quick money, it leads to a situation where guys are, basically left rock bottom. I mean, rock bottom with nothing. Like, I see guys out west all the time that used to be on top of the world, have all the money in the world, but, that all gets taken away in a second when, it's that ill-gotten gain. So, I hope that this guy at the age of 60 can get his life back on track, but it looks like he's going to be facing some significant time now, man. And I don't know if this guy had a wife or kids or anything like that, but that lifestyle, man, that quick money, it leaves behind a lot of broken families, man. And I taught, and worked with a lot of kids that were, the children of guys that had made those kinds of decisions. And now their kids are growing up, in the streets. The dad is locked up, and he's sitting in prison thinking about his kid being raised by, some other dude that he doesn't even know. You know what I'm saying? That's like, for me, that would be like the most messed up feeling on the planet. So any kids that, are at Marshall now or any of those schools now watching this video, it's up to you. I'm not your dad. I can't tell you what to do. But, look at what some of these guys are doing when they're like still in their 60s, bro. That's not what you want to be doing, It's your boy Winnie C. Report. I'm out.